Hey, what's going on, Summoners? My name is Nathan Ng, and today we're going to be taking a look at 5 bad habits that everybody should avoid. With the end of the season coming extremely soon, we thought it'd be nice to give you some pretty important advice so you can go ahead and better your gameplay. We're going to be covering these bad habits as well as how to fix them so you can go ahead and reach your dream rank before the season ends. A lot of these habits can be difficult to fix, so if you struggle with them, don't worry. We'll be by your side every single step of the way. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and hop right into the video. Like we just mentioned, the season is coming to an end. This means that a lot of players are going to be looking to mash out games so they can go ahead and climb as fast as possible. Except this is actually a pretty awful way to climb. Now, for some of you, the idea of playing more than 3 games a day sounds exhausting and time-consuming. Same. For others, they can easily stack up to 10 games or more without breaking a single sweat. Regardless of where you fall, it's important to not spam games. Yes, the season is ending soon, which means that you're going to be on a ranked timer, but don't forget that your rank can also drop. Spamming games often leads to a ton of issues for many players. I've had one of my friends, sorry Leo, I'm gonna call you out here, drop from Masters all the way to Diamond 10 LP. Sorry about that, King. Just, this advice is kind of for you as well. Take your time while you play and enjoy each and every single match. If you want to play multiple games of League a day, that's okay. But just separate it throughout the day or just switch game modes. One of the best tactics that players have used is to play 3 to 4 games of ranked a day and then completely cut it off. Win or lose, sometimes you just have to call it a day and play some URF, Norms, or some ARAMs. Since the season is ending soon, don't forget to check us out at ProGuides.com. You can go ahead and view our great catalog of challenger coaches that can personally create a walkthrough to your dream rank. Got a busy schedule? Well, we've got you covered. Our trained roster of coaches are here 24/7 to help you reach your goal, whatever that may be. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and check us out. Regardless, let's get back into the video and dive right into our next big mistake. For our bad habit, it has to be that many players don't take breaks. This habit is often paired with our previous mistake of spamming games. After a good game, be sure to take a small break to recharge and get your mind back in place. If that game was exceptionally awful, then you might need a bit more time to try and find a different activity until you feel a bit better. For me, sometimes I go to the gym, I work out, or I just go grab some boba. There is nothing wrong with taking a break and avoiding tilts. If anything, it's far better for you to understand when you're mentally off so you can go ahead and take time to refocus and play at your best. Everybody takes breaks in different ways. Some people like to lift weights, some people might go play with a pet, others watch some ProGuides YouTube videos, and some people just play TFT instead. I personally recommend checking out the ProGuide videos because you could just constantly improve, but I might be a little bit biased, it doesn't matter. Regardless of how you recharge, it's just important to make sure that you give yourself a break. Speaking of recharging, it's also super important to take care of yourself. When you're trying really hard to grind ranked, think of it as a test that you had to take in school or any other sports that you participated in. Sure, that may sound a bit odd, and we're not saying that everybody should hit the gym and eat a salad in the sunlight before playing their ranked games. We're simply saying that you would never show up to a big game or exam day without a good night's rest and breakfast. So why put yourself at a disadvantage and skip on this for ranked? Don't take for granted how much better you can play when you are feeling good. Make sure you get yourself some water, some food, and get some good sleep. This will put your mental state in the best possible place that it can be while also giving you maximum brain power and reflexes. It doesn't sound like much, but just think about it. There's a reason pro teams have gyms and a great care regimen. And if that's not enough for you, well, watch Dopa's stream and watch how much water he drinks while he plays. That guy's thirstier than me, and I guess in a very different way. It doesn't matter. Anyway, moving on, we got the habit of autopiloting. Many of you guys have likely heard this term before. When somebody's on autopilot, they're not actually actively thinking about the game and are instead playing off of instinct. While the severity of autopilot varies from person to person, it's still pretty destructive when it becomes part of your gameplay. There are a ton of different things that can cause autopilot. These can range from boredom to tilts to lack of sleep to everything in between. Regardless of what puts you on autopilot, the biggest thing is to understand the concept. Now that you know what autopilot is, your next big step is going to be to recognize when you're in it. This can be extremely difficult for some people because it requires a little bit of introspection. A nice little tip that we can give you to start out on your journey of ending autopilot is to ask yourself why you're doing something. Let's just say that you're mindlessly shoving in waves on autopilot and you had no idea. You can catch yourself by asking, why are you shoving in those waves? If you can't come up with an answer, then you're likely not very focused and should use this realization to refocus. That's another problem that I struggle with, honestly, is just to refocus and constantly be actively thinking. Once you're able to reliably catch yourself in autopilot, you can then work on tactics to get yourself out of it as well as preventing it overall. It can be a lengthy process for some people, so be sure to take your time and move at your own pace. And that last advice is good for anything in life, honestly, not just League of Legends. Go at your own pace and don't let the pressures of other things just kind of weigh down on you. Trust me, you know yourself better than anybody else does. Now, before we continue on with the video, don't think for a second that we forgot about everybody's favorite ProGuides tradition. For our question of the day today, we just want to stay on topic of bad habits and ask you guys personally, what's one bad habit that you struggle with in League? When it comes to me, sometimes I just get bored of laning phase and just end up forcing bad fights. I also try playing really spicy. I try to do these crazy outplays for no reason and kind of just put it off as, limit testing. Nonetheless, let's get back into the video and check out a bad habit that tends to develop early on thanks to the league's popularity. Don't let the title of this mistake fool you. There is always a nice spot to have a cookie cutter build, and we're not saying that you should completely revamp and readjust your own itemization. However, what we think is important is to understand your build. This may sound weird at first, but hear us out. Over the years, many League of Legends players have found countless resources, including ProGuides, that can easily give them every single rune page and item path that they could possibly need. This is extremely beneficial, as it means that everybody's up to date on the best possible builds, and it also means that you don't personally have to do any theory crafting or math for maximum efficiency. If we were really to break it down, the true harm of constantly following cookie cutter builds is really the lack of understanding for how things work. For example, do you know why you take Guardian instead of Aftershock? Or why Fleet is becoming better compared to other runes? Maybe you don't know why Scorch is so often hated by pro players when it seems like a lot of free damage. There are a lot of different things that can be found within builds that are often extremely versatile, but thanks to the lack of understanding, people never really diversify and adjust them. It is completely okay to not want to have to create your own itemization path and rune pages, but it's extremely important to understand why certain things work for certain characters. For example, recently a lot of players have picked up Aerie, Lethality, Xayah. However, many of these players don't understand why it's working and thus they aren't using it correctly. The combination of Aerie, Scorch, and Xayah's low cooldown means that it's an extremely vital poking tool. But many players are playing her like classic Xayah because they have no idea why the build works and that it's made for spamming Q rather than completely cutting away with your E. Again, to reiterate, we're not saying that you need to stop using cookie cutter builds or stop using your favorite guides. We're just saying it's extremely useful and important to understand why certain things work and why others don't. Just like our Aerie Xayah example, you'd be shocked if you knew just how many players didn't know how Conqueror worked or that shield bow gave additional AD when that shield is procced. It's being able to understand how these things work that truly grants you a big advantage over the enemy. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but make sure you understand why cars aren't driven with squares instead. As we draw closer to the end of the video, we feel like it's pretty important to mention the massive bad habit of fighting for nothing. This can often be seen in your ranked games as random jungle skirmishes happen, or just what many like to call an ARAM. If you watch the higher levels of play, you'll realize that a lot of players tend to avoid random fights. Sure, they may happen, but they aren't very often. And if they seem random to you, take a closer look at why you may realize the reasoning behind them. The idea of fighting for nothing is quite literally that. You and your team are simply fighting to fight. This is what tends to create a coin flip game where one team randomly gains the lead off kills and snowballs into a victory. A better tactic than playing team deathmatch is to play with the goal in mind. Plus, even if your team ends up winning the fight, you often waste a lot of time trying to figure out what to do next since it was unexpected. If you learn to fight with purpose, then not only can you play around it, but you'll also be able to quickly adapt to it whether you win or lose the fight. A bad example of fighting for nothing is just walking into the enemy jungle and fighting a 3v3 with no objectives up or waves pushing. If your team wins this fight, then you have a few extra kills, but really nothing else to do. I mean, sure you can get turret platings or just get small objectives, but sometimes it may not be worth the risk. If your team loses the fight, the team can look to take towers and may even have a higher gold lead now since your team has multiple shutdowns. Instead, let's just say you and your team want to fight around Baron and Dragon is also up soon. With this goal in mind, you can get vision around Baron and push waves while also getting ready for a team fight. With this new purpose, if a fight suddenly breaks out at Baron, your team is fully prepared. If your team wins the fight, you can now get the Baron, have one person do Dragon, and then push waves. If your team ends up losing the Baron, you can still get the Dragon since you prepped their waves and had vision. The enemy team cannot push as quickly, which gives you and your allies some time to respawn. Another great example of this that is only really seen in higher ranks is playing around bounties. In higher levels of play, people will exclusively look to kill somebody with a high bounty so that you can go ahead and get a bigger gold lead on your carry. With this goal in mind, they set up vision around it and then just look for the pick. Once the gold is now on their carry, they can now continue their comeback by pressuring other objectives. In the average level of play, however, many people will just pick random fights and they just might pick up a bounty on accident. And even worse, the bounty gold might have just given 1000 gold to the support Nautilus. Yeah, this one is personal. Overall, it's okay to pick fights and play with your team, but make sure that there's a purpose behind it. The enemy being dead isn't a purposeful fight. The enemy being dead 20 seconds before Dragon is. Once you're able to identify these differences and make better strategic decisions, you'll see a lot of growth in your gameplay. Plus, your allies will thank you for your swift decision making and shot calling. As we close out our video, if you want to join an amazing community of people like you that loves lists, clock pieces, and other things like this, check out our Discord using the link found in the description. Also, if you want to talk, just tag me and hit me up. I'll be more than willing to hang out with you guys. Anyway, that sums up our video for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to join our ProGuides family at ProGuides.com. We offer exclusive giveaways and classes that you won't catch anywhere else, so stay tuned and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys back in the next video, and you guys know the drill. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.